What's wrong with you people?
Welcome to not another Baptist podcast, but man, we don't have time for all of this stuff. So Kyle,
Nope.
we got to
Matt,
talk about.
We got to talk about it. There was this report that was released this week. Normally we would not talk about that on this, but this one is just too big. There's so many people talking about it, and we would be neglecting our duty as trusted voices if we did not address it.
Yeah, I think you.
And I gotta say, Matt,
you oversold the trusted voices part, but yeah, this is one of those things that I don't think we can avoid, especially since so many people have seen it.
Yep, and let me tell you, I agree. I'm on board with the report.
100%.
Because the drift that we have seen is too much.
Yeah,
and it has to be addressed.
Yeah, I mean, all of them were going wide right. All of them were drifting to the right.
Drifting. Yep,
four of them in a row.
Too far to the right.
It was.
Yep.
It was
and then there was some leftward drift as well. So we got to. There was some leftward drift as well. There was one that drifted left.
Did one go left? I thought all of them went.
One did go left. Nope.
Okay.
Nope. One did go left. So we've got to address drift on the right, drift on the left.
Here's the neat thing, though. You are forever etched in the annals of history for the National Football League.
Yep.
Worst playoff kicker ever.
Yep.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Report.
And so the report is,
I don't know what y'all were thinking we were talking about.
Yeah.
But the report we were talking about is that Brett Maher may not have a job much longer because the Cowboys have apparently signed kicker Tristan Vizcaino, I don't know.
Yep.
But anyway, Brett, you better practice well this week, or you may not be on the field on Sunday.
That's right.
Kyle.
That's right. Gotta address the drift.
we just gotta address that. Oh man, that was such a sad thing. 4 in a row. Like one, I just remember being like, oh, that's a bad day. And then the second one, I was like, say what?
And I'm watching the social media reaction. And all I can think is this poor guy who has been one of the best kickers in the NFL all season. Yeah. I mean, he's been solid. And on the biggest stage of the year, he had just this terrible game that thankfully did not impact the game. It could have. It really could have come back and bit them in a big way, but it didn't. And I was just thinking, man, this poor guy. I mean, because he's so good, and it's obviously just something happened in that moment. You know, as baseball fans, the yips happen.
Yep.
You know, you think back to there was a guy for the Yankees back in the 90s who just forgot how to throw to first base.
No, even more recently, the Altuve, the COVID year, when I don't know if you remember, like it would be these like 10 feet throws to first base, and he's like throwing it straight on the ground.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this was a bad day. Bad day. But speaking of, if you are looking for trustworthy Christian higher education that equips you to think biblically, reason truthfully, and share God's word effectively, Texas Baptist College is a place for you. TBC focus is Christ-centered, scripture-driven, and student-focused. And the best way to experience TBC is to attend its spring preview day on March 31st. Tour the campus, speak with faculty, chat with students, and experience the unique campus community of Texas Baptist College during spring preview day. Register today at texasbaptistcollege.com/preview. I'm not sure if that's I don't really know the story of Brett Maher, where he went to college. So I don't know if he would if he finished. Or if maybe he was drafted before he graduated, but maybe that's an option for him because clearly if things don't turn around very quickly for this gentleman, he's going to have to go to Texas Baptist College. But he's
going to be looking for a job.
Don't let that be your last resort. Let that be your first stop for Christian higher education for your college path. Kyle, hey man, we both recently had Disciple Now. Winter retreat, whatever you want to call it. Your church did it. My church is about to do it. They do more of a spring retreat type thing. This more kind of their version of Disciple Now. But I was able to go to one for Denman Avenue. Baptist Church in Lufkin, Texas. Don Scrivener is a youth pastor there, student pastor there, a good friend of mine and listener of the pod. And so we got to hang out, eat some money food. Oh, it's good. Piney Woods Baptist Camp, or Piney Wood, I think it's just Piney Woods Camp outside of Groveton, has some of the best camp food I have ever had in my life. And we had a great time. We did drift trikes, actually, and think tricycle down on the ground, kind of oversized a bit, and then bigger tires in the back, and this kind of like 3-leaf clover type racetrack. And so lots of turns and massive tires that you're bouncing into and everything else as you're drifting around the track as you go far too fast. I don't know how none of us didn't break a leg or whatever, but we did have a great time. But as we were kind of talking about our experience and some of the things we wanted to talk about in the coming year, one of those being pastor involvement and the ministries of the church. And so we get it. And this one is going to be more for, the size churches that are going to have those ministries in general. Your church might be so small or normative that maybe they don't really have youth activities, vacation Bible school, stuff like that. And so this is kind of more for those that are just above that tier and up, where these are some great opportunities to make an impact in the different ministries of your church. And so this isn't really vacation Bible school season, so we're not really going to focus on that. This is Disciple Now season and maybe winter retreat season and some of that kind of stuff. And so I thought one of the things that first comes to mind when I think of the value there is typically the pastor is going to know the older generations of the church better. I'm not talking about necessarily the senior adults, but the parents and up. I mean, that's generally going to be the people he's around, the people he's going to be visiting in hospitals, making home visits. Generally, the pastor is not going to be the one that normally is not going to be the one that goes to the school for lunch, with students. He's not generally going to be maybe the one that's always going to the ball games, the marching band competitions. Usually that's going to be the youth guy, if there is one, even a volunteer. However, when you have a Wednesday night program or some kind of a special activity, so let's think in terms of Wednesday night, kind of that, midweek gathering for the students, or that midweek kind of early in the year gathering like a Disciple Now. One of the things that I think is so valuable to at least making a genuine appearance, like just showing you don't have to even stay for the entire retreat, but maybe going and spending some time, is the value of having all of those students together, not seeing you in your suit behind the pulpit or whatever you wear or whatever you preach from. Sorry, Kyle, pub table. But a chance for them to see you, jeans and a t-shirt, normal guy, hanging out with a bunch of youth and the adults, and just seeing them kind of on their turf, doing their thing, playing some gaga ball with them, playing some 9 square with them, sitting in on a small group session. They'll ask questions usually of you, but you're just a part of them, sort of on their turf and being a part of what God is doing in their ministry, and also showing that you care about it enough to go and to sit in on it and be present for some of it. Not the whole thing necessarily, unless you want to. But it's so valuable because you have them all there together, people that you don't normally have the easiest way to have a great relationship with, that you get to kind of be on their turf. Kyle, do you concur, or what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say as often as possible. So at our church, our pastor Adam, he really does. He's a former youth pastor as well, so he's got a background in youth ministry. But he's really good, especially on Sunday morning. He'll come down and kind of as the youth are mingling before we break up into our individual Sunday school classes. He comes down and he's available. He's talking with the kids, and then occasionally on Wednesday night he'll drop in as well. But even so, this last week we had our Disciple Now winter weekend, I think is what we called it. And he even dropped in for a little bit on that. He didn't stay the whole time. When in both of the churches where I served as pastor, I was pretty involved in the youth ministry. The first one, we had a mom who was a volunteer, kind of a volunteer youth leader, and I went to camp with our youth every summer. Was really involved in even on their Wednesday night stuff. I would teach that occasionally, and really got to know the students there as well as I did when I was a youth minister. And so, pastor, if you have students, whether you have a full-time youth minister, part-time youth minister, volunteer, if you have students, if you have children, you want to be involved in those ministries as much as you can. And so if it makes sense, if you're available and you can go to children's camp or youth camp, take that opportunity. If it's as simple as the only thing you can do is drive the bus to get them to camp, do it if that works. Um, and if there's a winter retreat or a weekend or something like that, and you can drop in, make sure that you do that so that your students can get to know you. Because don't even if you are not the primary leader of that ministry, um, you can still have a huge impact on the lives of the students in your church. In fact, I would even say this: if you are not involved, if the students are not getting to know you as pastor, that is going to be detrimental, I think, in the long run, because they'll have a connection to the youth ministry, but not necessarily to the larger church. And I think those connections are what help keep students in church once they're gone to college. And even, look, if you have the opportunity with graduating students and you can help plug them into a church, help connect them to a church in the community wherever they're going, do that. Be involved in the student ministry as much as you possibly can, as much as it makes sense in your church context.
Yeah. So I guess if we were to make a list, and this is somewhat on the fly as we're visiting about that. So number one, just be involved, have some presence there. Maybe not all the time. You may not even be able to commit to an entire week at camp. If you can, great. Obviously, would be wonderful if you could. But we realize you're spinning a lot of plates, and but
Yep.
so is that youth guy.
Yep.
It means a lot to him, and but it means a ton to those students for them to see
Yep.
you kind of out of your element, cut up with them, enjoy those meals with them, and so one of the best things you can do is communicate, which is key anyway. Communicate with your youth guy. Say, hey, I would love if there's a time that you would like for me to be there this weekend. Let me know. Or if you
Yep.
don't want me there, let me know. But if there's a certain time that you would like for me to be there, either to maybe answer some questions or to dig in deeper with something, or what's the best time in the schedule where I'm not going to be a distraction from anything you guys are doing, but maybe I can come in, maybe eat lunch with them and then hang out for some of the free time and then stay for the worship that night. If that's how our schedule was we had like lunch, some free time and some organized games, and then the evening worship gathering or session. And so that would have been a great time. If I was pastor, that I would have just popped in during that. If I couldn't stay for the whole weekend or whatever, come in, 4 hours. You've had a meal with them, you've played some games with them, and you've sung some praises and studied God's word with them. A great little window of time in 3, 4, 5 hours, and you're done. And
Yep.
so that's kind of idea
So,
one, just your presence. Number two, and this is one where this is going to be if you have a youth group, if you have a kids ministry or something like that has an organized time like this, is consider a little swap, where maybe the youth guy comes and does your prayer meeting if you still do a prayer meeting on Wednesday or Bible study, whatever you do on Wednesday. Swap, and then you go over and teach the youth. Or if you even have a organized kids and youth or whatever, do a rotation where maybe the kids director goes over and teaches the prayer thing, and youth guy comes over here, you go over there and just kind of spin them around. Because one, it builds kind of a pipeline between the kids ministry and the youth ministry where there's some relational connection there, where the youth guy is going to be known by some of those older kids that will be coming up. But also it gives that youth guy a chance to get in front of your older folks, and gives you a chance to be in front of the teens. So that's my second suggestion, is maybe considering a little pulpit swap, for lack of a better word, where you go and teach the youth on a Wednesday, and he comes and does the prayer thing. You think that's a good idea? Bad idea? What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I would say if it makes sense in your context, yeah, do that. And now for us, it's easy because we both have backgrounds in youth ministry. So teaching teenagers is still a pretty natural thing for me.
And
If you have never,
and that's precisely why I became a pastor.
yes, that's right. But if
One last
in the
lock
event that
in,
you did
maybe, and
not,
I was done.
yes, absolutely. Now, in the event that you have not spent time in youth ministry, you've not spent a lot of time teaching teenagers specifically, um, that like sometimes they're just groups of people that are scary. For me, Matt, believe it or not, preschoolers terrify me. Um, Teaching preschoolers specifically is one of the scariest things. So our church has like a little PDO, Parents Day Out thing, and they asked me to come in and do chapel. Now it's like 10 minutes, right? And I'll bring my guitar and sing some songs, and then we'll talk like 5 minutes on a Bible study. But that's terrifying to me. For some reason, man, those little kids just scare the living daylights out of me. So if that's uncomfortable for you, it doesn't mean you don't do it. It means maybe you just sit down with your youth pastor and like, all right, help me kind of take my normal teaching style and maybe shift that just a bit for youth. But the more important thing is you're making connections. So we do a Wednesday Bible study and Wednesday noon Bible study and prayer meeting, and occasionally our youth pastor will teach that. Occasionally I'll teach it, and it helps get somebody that the in that case the senior adults don't normally see on stage or hear teach. That they get to interact with us, and the same is true for the youth, right? You know, as much as you hope that they're paying attention during your sermon, that they may be passing notes back and forth on Sunday morning or completely spaced out. But it gives you a different context to be able to connect with them. And so yeah, from time to time, maybe you make that once a quarter. If your youth pastor is doing a series, maybe you step in and if he invites you to do so, speak on a certain topic in that series. But as much as possible, again, you want to be involved in the lives of your students. And again, I think what you said is important. It's important they see you outside of the pulpit, right? So in jeans and a t-shirt, believe it or not, you show up at a park on a Wednesday night in the summer in shorts, and that changes the idea and the understanding of who the pastor is. When you're out there playing nine square or playing dodgeball with them, that's fantastic.
Bro, I still remember so growing up, First Baptist Grand Prix. I don't think he listens to this, but I know there's some members of First Grand Prix that do, and so I wonder if this gets back to him. Dr. Scar is like all of 3.5 feet. He makes you look like Aaron Judge. And he's taller than that. But anyway, I only ever saw him in the suit. And when we would have Disciple Now, he would wear the suit, but put the shirt over
Put the t-shirt on.
the dress shirt.
I love it. Love it.
Yes. So
love it.
that was the only thing I ever saw until middle school Matt, maybe early high school Matt, is at the FLC. We had a gym with a walk-in track and racquetball courts and all that kind of stuff. I didn't even know what racquetball was. That was where we played kickball, man, or dodgeball. It was amazing. Yeah. You got hit every which direction. But anyway, he played racquetball. I didn't even have a concept of this thing. And I'm walking back there, like to go up on the walking track, and he's coming out. And I will forever have in my mind just etched the sight of his chest hair climbing out of his like shirt and going over the collar and being like, "Oh, I'm glad you wear a suit." Like I am now clearly glad that you wear a suit. But it was just like earth shattering. Like I thought this guy like went to bed in a suit. Like, I mean, I only ever saw him in a suit. And it made him so much more relatable to me to have seen him just dripping in sweat, everyday guy with shorts and a t-shirt. And I loved him even more after that because he just seemed more approachable, more relatable, all of that.
So the first church that I served as a worship leader in college. So this is before we got married. So I'm 20 years old, 19, 20. I was the worship leader, but we had like a handful of youth. There wasn't really a youth minister, so I started doing some stuff with them, and we had the little softball field behind our church, so we would go there and play softball after like Wednesday night, especially in the summer. And our pastor, who he was bivocational, but he showed up dressed up regardless. So Wednesday nights, like he wouldn't wear a tie, but he was in dress pants, a white shirt, and a coat. And Wednesday nights when we got done, he would come out and he would play softball in his dress shoes, dress pants, and a shirt. And man, fantastic. I mean, there's nothing like having a pastor pitch to you in almost a full suit. And there was one time, like I very nearly lined it right back at his face. Like we're talking inches. He and cat-like reflexes, he put his mitt up, snagged the ball right before he lost teeth.
Wow.
It was phenomenal. But man, just so you don't have to be cool, right? Don't buy into the man. I gotta wear I gotta wear a hip T-shirt. I gotta wear no. Just show up. Show up. Let your students get to know you, and you'll be amazed at the work that God does in their lives just because you as pastor are investing in them.
Yep. So be present. Make some meaningful appearances when they have special activities. If they're going out to eat or something, I mean, pop in on it, especially if it's a good place to eat. Make the youth pastor pay. But go
Absolutely.
and be a part of what they're doing. You don't have to be at everything, because you don't want to, you don't need to be. But making some meaningful connections there, you would just be surprised how much that's going to benefit your sermons. And they're hearing of your sermons because they've seen you playing softball in almost a suit or whatever. And feel free to own the old guy thing, I'll say all the, drip. I'll just purposely and often misuse it on purpose, but that just, it helps you relate. It's okay. And then also, be available and involved in what they're doing. And the final little encouragement is, and this is just part of all of that, is don't be the dictator where you're micromanaging everything he does, but also don't be the guy that's aloof that just assumes he's doing everything. Be involved. Find that middle ground of being involved. We all talk about what would you like to see in the youth, the kids ministry, all of that kind of stuff. Dream together, pray for these students together, partner together. Because so many of our churches can end up being kind of siloed out, where you've got kids men doing their thing, following their thing, doing everything on their own. You've got the youth ministry doing their thing, believing all that kind of stuff. You got the adults, the choir, all these kind of partitions. But we really see in Scripture a family together that has all things in common. And so, yes, there's age-appropriate things that we do and dig into and do, and that's part of it. But find a way to kind of bounce off. Pulpit swap, whatever it is. Kyle, send us out with some final thoughts, and then we'll get out.
Hey, thanks. And again, this applies. This applies whether you have an organized youth ministry or not. If you do teenagers, still find a way to be involved in their lives. And thank you so much for listening. We don't take it lightly that you listen every week, and we really appreciate it. And until next time, may your coffee be as black as night and as bold as the gospel you declare.
What's wrong with you people?